So Teemo and Ahri seem to be the price gainers this week around as we continue to see some set also increasing in price. Is there any sign of this cooling, and when is Wave 2 going to be finally hitting stores? All of that and more we're going to be discussing right now. Seems to be the problem. It's like, unfortunately, and I feel for you guys because there's a lot who have tried to get into this game after release. They found out about it and they're like, this looks like a very intriguing game. It's League of Legends, seems a very dynamic type game, and I want to go ahead and get some packs and a structure deck and see what maybe this game has to offer. And then you go ahead and you look online and it's like, well, these prices are absolutely horrendous, and rightfully so. And it sucks because there's a lot of people who do want to go ahead and play this game and be a part of an awesome local community and potentially even compete at things like Houston and things of that nature. And you just can't right now. And that is disheartening. I've seen a ton of comments time and time again about people, just mad at Riot as a whole for digging themselves into this kind of hole. And it's like, hey, I want to go ahead and buy a case. Can you? Yeah, sure. Only if you want to spend maybe $1,800 on doing so. And it's like, well, no. But at the same time, are you leaving me a choice at all? And so a lot of people are just stuck at a standstill. Now, first and foremost, it does feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel. I have been looking around and talking to a couple of game stores and those in the local community, and it does feel like that the allocation of Wave 2 is starting to hit stores, though at least from what we are hearing, they are told to hold off for a little bit longer on releasing said product. And so it's going to be interesting. Now, that isn't necessarily confirmed. A lot of game stores at least can't necessarily confirm a lot of that, but there at least have been a lot of those rumors spreading. I know there's a game store even down the street from me where they are doing 2 packs per win, and we're like, wait, how are you managing to do 2 packs per win kind of thing in that regard? And it's like, well, either you were really storing up a lot of your stuff, or at the same time, maybe you did get some allocation. And so there's a lot of those rumors coming around, and it could very well be in mid to late December that Wave 2 really hits stores in full force. Now, the big thing about that is Wave 2 needs to not only go ahead and just have a big wave of release to bring prices down. That's only going to bring prices down for a couple of weeks, if that. What you're going to be seeing instead is you need to be able to maintain a consistent wave to really combat the market. Otherwise, you're just going to get those lows and highs and everything, and people are going to continue to be disgruntled with these kinds of prices. That's something that we need to avoid in this community. Likewise, we don't want to even have this happening in set 2 either, because if we continue to have these kinds of problems, well, what are we going to be able to do about it? Not much, and that can really suck. And it's like, well, if I'm going to be going to Las Vegas right after set 2 releases for that regionals, how am I going to be able to get my hands on enough product if everything is so scarce as it is? And you're going to be finding yourselves almost tied down wondering, well, what can I do about this? And so that's going to be the biggest thing about Wave 2. You can't just do a big wave and just say, okay, here's a bunch of product and it lasts 2 weeks and then you're in the same issue. So hopefully these things can really start to calm down and we can really get a hand or a hold on this market so that this can be an affordable game. Riot has said they don't want this to be an expensive game, and everyone's looking at the prices in the market and they're like, well, then what are you doing? Because I don't want to spend over $100 on a Time Warp, $100 on a Kai'Sa. Right now, Kai'Sa is going for $90 for the regular card, $96 for the alt art. And it's like, well, what's going on with this kind of scarcity? And so I'm really hoping, and there's a lot of rumors to confirm that there's a lot of product that's already being released, or about to be released, so we just need to hold on for a little bit longer. Likewise, I think the big reason why a lot of this is being held from release, at least for now, is due to Houston and not, flooding the market just for it to be bought up for those who might be competing. after the fact. It's like if you go ahead and flood the market after that big event, well, then things can really simmer down because those who are looking to just build decks and things of that nature are able to then do so or just get their hands on some boxes and product. That can be a big difference maker there. And that's going to be hard because, I mean, we're even seeing things where $7, for a stacked deck. And it's like, well, that's great and all, but what are we supposed to do about that? And it's a waiting game, and it sucks that it has to be a waiting game. We're a month now into this game being released, and the first 2 weeks were okay. They weren't necessarily great with prices. And then just like that, they continued to shoot up. I mean, we saw Showstopper going from $60 to $100. I mean, 2 weeks in, it was a $30 card, which still felt like a little bit outrageous, and then it just skyrocketed after that point. So we'll see what these prices are going to maintain, and we'll see how this can continue, but hopefully we are getting ever closer to that light at the end of the tunnel, and your guys' patience, I really hope, is going to be rewarded, and I doubt that Riot is going to sham us again, or, really, dig themselves deeper into a hole, especially as Wave 2 ends up happening. So, with that being said, this is the current top movers of this market, and things to keep in mind here. Now, biggest thing is that booster boxes have continued to skyrocket. Those that have been holding on to the product, the scalpers, the things of those are those collectors that are just trying to make a profit off of this game. The prices just continue to increase at an astronomical rate. But this case, for example, is going for $1,800 for 6 boxes. So nearly $300, almost 3 times. MSRP is $120, mind you. And we're going and seeing this now getting at near triple the price of that. It's horrendous and shouldn't be the case whatsoever, but people still are buying these. They're getting these, they're dropping $2,000 on this type of product, and that's the hard part. Also, interestingly enough, Ahri alt arts and Ahri signatures have actually been one of the highest, growing in price products. I remember my friend who ended up pulling a signed Ahri the day of release. We immediately turned around and sold that for him, and it was about $1,100. And now, it's going for about $1,350, $1,400, and that's a pretty solid place. But I mean, the Ahri signature art is one of the best looking, and also just Ahri as a character is one of the most sought after. The deck in and of itself is a very good deck that you are able to go ahead and utilize, but it's not necessarily one that's been able to make waves in the meta. Heck, if it was able to do so, the price would probably be even higher, probably even up to what Kaisa is at right now with the signature at $1,600, though the increase hasn't been nearly as much in that case. And so it's going to be interesting to see, but even the Ahri over number, not even the signature one, has actually gone ahead and been higher than the Kaisa overnumbered as well. So really interesting to see that. Not only that, but the Teemo signature, the GGEZ signature card that you can pull from the packs that you get from participating at your nights are climbing to the point of being around $350 to $400 as well. Now, online, you're seeing it selling, at least in Facebook groups and things of that nature, for closer to $250 to $300, but more so on the higher end around $300. And rightfully so. I mean, it is a very sought-after card. It's a good-looking card, and it is kind of like the trolley card as well. And the only way that you can get it is through one of the 3 cards in a pack. That's it, so it is a very rare card in and of that nature. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how things are going to continue to grow and decline. Now, over this past week, these are the cards that have been climbing and falling. And I will say this, that a lot of people are getting anticipation already for set 2. Now, at the same time, it hasn't even released in China yet. That's going to be next week sometime, or I think it was like December 13th or something like that. Anyway, but it is going to be coming within the next 2 weeks, and that's going to be a big deal because there's automatically going to be a lot of tournaments that are going to be happening, and we're going to be trying to predict where this next scene of competitiveness, where the meta is going to take us. And it's like, well, are people going to then be running a ton of seals in this case because of the power costs and things of that nature? Or is it going to simmer down and we're going to see a little, more normalized of a market, and the seals just happen to not be as impactful to the meta as what we initially thought. And that's going to be something interesting to see as well on what this is going to be able to do. And something that we are going to be watching for as well on our end, because it is something really interesting to consider here, because it's almost people are preemptively buying in anticipation that this is going to be a lower price at on release, literally about 3 months from now. It's mid-February, and we're not even in December yet. And we haven't even hit Wave 2. These seals could fall down to even like $10 to $15 at that point if Wave 2 happens to be successful. Now, the alt art runes, of course, those are always going to just be high. The only way to get those in this case are through, again, the 3 cards in the pack, and that's basically it. So that rarity and stuff is going to be a big deal. Now, the Ahri launch card, that isn't the regular Ahri, this is the promo exclusive, has actually come down in price a decent amount, 47% at that point. Even on eBay and whatnot, before release, a lot of those were selling for around $100, so to see those coming down, is pretty good to be able to see. Likewise, Zenith Blade, it's still at around $30. That is a lot, but again, that's about where it was 2 weeks ago as well, so that's definitely good to be able to see where all of that is going. Now, with that, of course, the mid-range values are going to be interesting here as well, just because we've been seeing, some Darius alt arts going up to $14, really interesting on that. And this is interesting, too, because the card in and of itself is a really good-looking card. Also could be anticipating the set 2 release. We've had a lot of really reassuring really interesting cards that are starting to hit the meta, and it's like, well, Darius Executioner could be a really good card in this next set, especially with like Renata or even like Rek'Sai or things of that nature as well. So a lot of people are even buying like these alt arts for this matter, and rightfully so. And at $10, I mean, who can blame them? I mean, it seems like just a really good price. And here's even a play set for, $13, $14 a piece. So interesting there. And again, a lot of people do tend to chase the hype. You saw this last week where Set went ahead and skyrocketed in price because they won the CCS in Atlanta, or CSS in Atlanta, and likewise. And then we also saw Teemo do really good in Vegas. We saw Annie do extremely good, but necessarily not a huge price increase just because, well, it's Annie. The only thing that you really need to run are Darius's and Kaisas for that matter. Otherwise, it's all pretty standard. And so it's interesting to see how a lot of this is impacting these prices. Likewise, the 3 increases here, Rasha the Sunderer, that's going to be for the Teemo decks. Karthus Eternal, there's a lot of people who are playtesting that card with Victor for that matter. So it's interesting that a lot more people are buying that. I haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of deck lists that are running that card, but especially at the local scene, that is your sense of discovery kind of thing, where you are like, well, this card looks really good. And I have been going against on TCG Arena people who are playing, Death Knell Victor, which is a really interesting idea, but at the same time, still a little bit too slow. But still really cool to be able to see people testing out these ideas. Likewise, the top 3 decliners in this case, I mean, Lee Sin is going to be down to 10 cents, not a big deal. Undercover Agent, Gentleman's Duel, nothing big. Misfortune Bounty Hunter falling 32%, really interesting there as well. And even like Darius Hand of Noxus going down to 750. So really interesting to see right there. This is going to be interesting as well because this is a promotional card and kind of cool to see. I wish they had a freaking picture, but sadly we don't. Now, again, this is something that we do have to be a little bit mindful of. I hate saying that we still do need to wait on this market, but we do need to still wait on this market. Things at least are coming down a little bit. Stack Deck going down to 757, and things of that nature. Sprite Mother falling about $1.20 as well from last week, even where it was going closer to $5 as well. But likewise, we've seen even a little bit of an increase, like with Singularity going up to 139. But we also have seen Retreat coming down a bit in price, and things of that nature. So a lot of things are calming down. Likewise, on the flip side, Kiana, again, a main card in Set, also a main card in Lee Sin as well, but mainly for Set, is going to be going up to nearly $11. So almost a $2 increase from last week as well. Now, this is going to be interesting because a lot of Nocturnes have been climbing in price. I was able to get mine around $4 about a week and a half ago as well. That's had a big increase, but again, it's for the Teemo. You go ahead and you play Stack Deck, or you go into Candlelit Sanctum, you look at the top two. Well, you see Nocturne, but you don't draw him. Cool, he comes out for free. Really cool stuff and dynamics there, and rightfully so. So it's something that people are pursuing there. Likewise, Thousand Tail Watcher has been fluctuating. Luckily, this seems like it is the top. We are not seeing a Thousand Tail Watcher above $45. That still sucks. It should be around $15, maybe $20. It will come down. It's only a rare, and I can see that really fluctuating in price and falling quickly as soon as Wave 2 hits. Likewise, same with Zonia's Hourglass. I mean, it's at $14 right now. Again, that's not nearly as bad as what we saw in China. And that's very good to be able to see, because China, Zonia's Hourglass, now mind you that Master Yi was a lot more popular in China because it was literally like, 40% Kaisa, 40% Yi. So the price increase because of that demand was a lot higher, going to near $20 for Zonia Hourglass, but still $14 for here. Again, this is one that will greatly fall. Again, probably down to like that $6 mark that they're marking right here. Could definitely see that as a possibility, especially because it's just a rare. It's not necessarily something that is very difficult to pull. Likewise, it seems like Tasty Faithful does continue to climb up in price. This is an interesting one because it is just such a good staple. It was a budget staple. You saw it down. When the game first came out, it was at $2. It has gone ahead and hovered around $5 and then shooting back up to, near $11. All these Chinese cards can just get out of here. I hate that. And you're seeing it around $9. So again, fairly healthy. It's not skyrocketing up to $12, $15. Doesn't necessarily need to, but it is just a super good budget version of these cards. And likewise, Windwall even we're seeing going up in price a little bit. We are seeing, Mystical, the card that goes ahead and takes over a Mystical Reversal, takes over any spell at that point. That has been increasing in price just because we've seen a lot of really good plays with that as well, especially taking over Time Warp. Really big difference maker right there. And Windwall can be a big counterpart of that as well. So there's been a little bit of increase in price. Again, Vi has probably been the one that's had one of the highest increases in this case as well, mainly due to the fact that, you are going to be looking at, Annie people wanting to go ahead and utilize her. She does run 3 of, and the only way to necessarily get those are through pulling them or through the Jinx structure deck, and there's only one in the Jinx structure deck with that. So not necessarily worth buying the deck for the one card, and it's only $4 at that case. But again, definitely could be falling down in price. But Vi Ride the Wind combo is just one of the best combos in this game as of right now. Darius has actually been falling a little bit in price. He's been hovering between $10 and $13, fluctuating from week to week, and luckily we are seeing a lot of good indicators that this market is leveling out. That's awesome to be able to see. Fiora is, going up a little bit in price, not necessarily too much. Again, though, this is for the set hype. We're seeing in the past, 7 days in this case. This is a month, but in the past 7 days, it's going from about $5 up to $7, so nearly a $2 increase. And even looking at this as well, we're looking at, even $6.98 for a playset each, so you're looking at about $21. Not too horrible at all, so that's good to be able to see that a lot of this is stabilizing. Now, of course, it still does need to fall a lot. I don't want to say like these are healthy prices. They're not. They suck. And they need to get a swift kick in the butt at this point with these prices. Likewise, Falling Star has had some of the craziest fluctuations. Even in the first week and a half of release, when a lot of things went up in price, Falling Star ended up being still around $3, and then there was suddenly a buyout of that card. For some unknown reason, it shot up to about $21 to $23 at that point. I mean, just absolutely outrageous. Stabilized around 18, and then immediately has fallen down to near 10 to $13. I mean, heck, you're even seeing like near mint foil, $7. And, rightfully so. It's a rare. It is literally just as rare as Thousand Tail. And it's interesting because a lot of these end up having a lot of the same demand. But it's interesting that Thousand Tail Watcher is now $45, but Falling Star with the same rarity is, 10. Okay, cool. Well, interesting to see, but also good to see that even a couple are now down to $7. Likewise, Mundo has been having a little bit of an increase as well, though. A lot of these are looking pretty good, $6. But again, a lot of people are going ahead and seeing, hey, Teemo actually doesn't have as bad of a matchup into Kai'Sa as what we initially thought. That's really interesting to consider because we thought that it was just a pure shutout, and it's not. As long as you can go ahead and get into your location, you can go ahead and take it to, the Kai'Sas and whatnot. It can struggle a little bit against Annie, but that's just because Annie can move so fast as well, and something that you need to be careful about. And then also just the removal with readying up 2 runes every single turn. But that's almost even a harder matchup than Kai'Sa. And a lot of people were determining that Kai'Sa was just going to be the hardest matchup. So it's really interesting to see how that has kind of flipped around in that case. Now, we also have even seen Asona go up in price as well, going up to $6. Leona a little bit, but not necessarily nearly as much. Primal had about maybe $1 climb, but not necessarily anything out of the ordinary. And a lot of these prices are still looking rather healthy. So I'm going to be curious to see what the rest of this market is going to be able to do and things of that nature. It's going to be interesting to see. And I'm curious to see what's going to end up happening here with the rest of these prices. Heimendinger might be one that goes up in price in the second set because he just has a really good ability where he has the tap abilities of all friendly legends, units, and gear. There's some insane gear that's coming out that if it taps, it can go ahead and copy that ability. So really intense stuff right there. But again, a lot of the regular stuff is stable. It is low. So you can still go ahead and get these budget options right now. You can still build Teemo relatively cheap, except for a couple of cards, mainly the stacked decks, and the Mundos are going to be probably the 2 most expensive. But we just saw Monk that was, less than $1. It was like 40 cents. That's great. And Monk is the most powerful card in that deck. So that's just really good to see. And otherwise, yeah, this is pretty much how the market is probably going to be until we are done with Houston and Wave 2 actually hits. I think there will be an initial dip right after Houston with a lot of people being like, oh, this deck failed me. I might as well just sell it. That'll probably bring down some prices as well, but we'll see how that actually ends up going. Showstopper, holy crap, it continues to climb up in price, leveling out. I mean, it went up to, about $90 at the peak and has fallen back down to around 77 is where one is listed, with $4.99 shipping, so 81 in that case, 85 there as well as the regular price. That is steep. But again, I mean, with how rare this card is and it being a signature, it can be a little bit difficult, and you're going to need to go ahead and try to find a way around it and probably just not play set. There's a lot of people at my locals who have like one or two showstoppers if they're lucky, but they're still playing set because they just love the deck. And that's perfectly fine. But, having three does make such a difference. Now, Divine Judgment is a really interesting one because, a couple of decks have been able to run like a one of, a two of, or things of that nature. Someone is, whoa, how do you have 56 of those? They bought up the market. That's how. Yep. And I mean, selling them at $23 a piece with shipping included. And there's a couple of decks that are able to go ahead. Of course, this is one of the set cards that you are going to be running, but it's not necessarily a huge impact that what a lot of people are thinking that it does. On paper, it says that it has a really good ability, but then your opponent goes up to 4 runes on the following turn, and it doesn't necessarily hurt as much as it could. And so I don't necessarily I think it's a somewhat overrated card in this case. Now, of course, Deadbloom Predator has still been around the same exact price. Again, $89, $90. That really sucks, but again, wait. I could see it being leveling out around $60 to $50 as long as the product is able to be a constant flow. And again, once those people continue to get those Deadbloom Predators, it's going to be able to continue to go down because the demand is just not going to be as high, and people will continue to open packs and put them online. So, again, be a little patient with that. Also, one is really interesting. Dazzling Aurora has seen a huge dip in price. I mean, at one point it was $85 to $90 at the peak, and it's now coming down all the way to $70. I mean, that is a big decrease, and that's probably one of the biggest decreases that we have seen so far at this point. Crazy to believe, but again, not a lot of people in the Americas in English have been playing Dazzling Aurora. It's kind of a lackluster deck in the sense of, hey, I hit, cool, I win. Hey, I miss, cool, you win. And that's basically it. Even if you do happen to hit Dazzling Aurora, you might still lose. There's when I'm playing Kaisa against Dazzling Aurora, it's like, hey, I'm going aggro at this point. You're going first, I'm going second. I'll play I'll play my hastened or my accelerated Kaisa and go for 2 points and try to hold and draw as many cards as I can to get all the answers I need to go against you. So even if you do hit Dazzling Aurora, cool. Even if you do happen to hit Dazzling Aurora, you pull back. Deadbloom Predator then cannot be played to a battlefield, and you're in a better place. And so people are learning that Dazzling Aurora, while it is one of the most powerful cards in set 1, isn't necessarily a great card. It's not a win-all. So really interesting to see there as well. White Flame Protector going down to $71. We did see this around, we saw it around $35 initially, then it just skyrocketed up to about $80, and it's come down, and we're seeing around $68, $69. That's healthy. A little bit better. Still not great. Don't buy it yet, but it's better. Again, $30 probably would be where that card would be, and gosh, he is just going to be so expensive to build. Let's be real. Now, Kaisa right here going around $90. And like I said, the alt-art one as well is going to be going for around $97. I'll see if I can pull it up, but I checked it yesterday, and it's around $97. So it's like, gosh, well, if you're going to be getting one Kaisa, you might as well pay $7 more to get the alt-art one. That one's even going to hold value better longer. Yes, you're not going to get your monies back if you end up buying a $97 card. That's not how it works. But it will at least still hold its value, where probably the alt-art is going to be around 60, whereas Kaisa will probably be around 25. The unfortunate part is that these cards are probably going to be in the meta until rotation, just with how powerful they are. White Flame Protector is going to be here until rotation. Set probably, Deadbloom Predator definitely, Kaisa definitely, and I say definitely with like a 95% hit rate in that case. There's that 5% it might not. There could be a better card that replaces it, but I highly doubt it. Now, likewise, Invert Timelines, we saw it go ahead and skyrocket up to $60 last week. Now it's coming down to about 15. It was at $20 for a long time. That was reasonable. That was fine. 44, too high still. Come on, guys. But again, this was the thing. Teemo was starting to do really good, and invert timelines can be a good answer against a lot of other meta card or meta decks in this case. You go against Kai'Sa, they have 7 cards in hand, and it's the cards that they want to see initially, especially if they have Zon Warrens and whatnot, and they're able to discard and draw one and get the cards that they want. And then you go invert timeline, it's like, cool, now you'll be up to 5 at the start of your next turn, and it's completely random. We'll see what you can do. That can be a really good option and something interesting to see. Likewise, though, we're seeing a lot of these going around $34, $35 for Chinese and $44. Again, dumb, but, you know, I could definitely see this card coming down in price sooner rather than later for a lot of these. So, likewise, Time Warp, again, still over $100. Now, this is one that I'm still a little bit skeptical of, mainly due to the fact that in this next set, Time Warp could still be a very meta-relevant card, especially in decks like Renata. She's looking very promising with something like Time Warp. And so, seeing this at $94, $95, still way too high. Stupid, I know, but still, we'll see how this can continue to impact here. But it is at least coming down. It's not 101 anymore, which is absolutely horrendous, but it is coming down in price. Now, here's one that's really interesting. Foxfire going up to $22 at this point. This is one that's kind of baffling to me a little bit. It was at 14 originally, and it just keeps going up in price. Now, of course, it is a good card, don't get me wrong, but going up to $22, you know, gonna do the Leo meme where, you know, the squint, because it's like, what? Why? You know, and it could just very well be demand. I mean, it is going to be an epic rarity in that case, which definitely brings up demand there. Totally get that. But likewise, even Bullet Time going up to now near $30 for you to be able to run this. I mean, it's just horrendous. 27 if you want to go ahead and get one, but a play set is going to be near $90 for you to go ahead and make this deck. You know, and again, wait on it. Doesn't necessarily need to. And if you do want to really play Misfortune this next set kind of thing, you know, the signature spell is going to probably really fall in price, and you could even play like an MF next set for a lot cheaper, though it might not be nearly as meta relevant as it is right now. And that's even with the caveat, whoops, that's one card I would definitely want to talk about. And that's even with the caveat that, you know, even Misfortune is going to be meta relevant even in this next set to even compete. So kind of tough. Now, Mystic Reversal is interesting because we've seen a huge increase in this card as well. November 2nd, beginning of the month, $3 card at this point, now going up to $20. I mean, you think that the 3 power cost was the big deterrent there, but even just being at 4 and being able to pay 4 for a Time Warp, it is a great counter to Kai'Sa and even Ahri in that matter. Cannot be countered by Defy, can be countered by Windfall, but when you're already going to be playing, you know, your Time Warp, cool, that's great. Great answer to Kai'Sa in that case, and we've been seeing that becoming the play, and because of that, those who want to make that play now will pay with their wallets, though again, you don't necessarily need to. It's going around $18 to $19, which is just absolutely insane to see. Now, Dragon Trade's actually had a pretty big increase as well at $10, kind of crazy. And a Cathian Rain going now near for $54 in price. Again, it is coming down a little bit. And there seems to be an interesting dynamic with Kai'Sa as well, where a lot of people are actually not seeing Kai'Sa have nearly as much success as what we have initially thought. A lot of people are building their decks to literally just counter Kai'Sa and are doing incredibly well at doing that. And Kai'Sa is still a very powerful deck. I'm not going to be, you know, putting shade on that or making it less of an issue than it already is. But Kai'Sa is starting to struggle in this meta, and that is something that is really interesting to be able to see. So I'm going to be curious to see what else might be happening with the rest of this, because we could start seeing Kai'Sa get a little bit cheaper, at least in those prices. So kind of cool to see. Really interesting to see how all of that is going to impact. Possession even is going up in price a bit as well, going up to $8. But otherwise, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for now. We're going to just go through a couple more pages at this point to kind of talk about anything that might be spiking from what we can see. But again, there's not necessarily a whole lot here that we're really watching out for. There's, of course, the Kaisa. It's going alt art now, going for near $100 at that point. You know, nothing really too surprising there. Yesterday, it was at like $96, $97. So, kind of sucks. But again, if you really want a Kaisa, pay $10 more, get the alt art. If you do sell it down the line, you're going to have it at a loss, but not as nearly of a loss as what you would with the original. Anyway, with that, still, everything else is still kind of normal here. I am really actually curious. I might want to pick up a couple Darius Executioner myself personally, just because of the alt art. I love the texturing that they've put on it. But otherwise, everything else is coming down. Let's go ahead and also see Flash, the Annie exclusive. So if you happen to go ahead, yep, still at $33. That absolutely sucks. We'll see if Proving Grounds actually ends up going down in price. We even have the Teemo alt art going down to $11, was at $15. Victor going to $15, you know, and a lot of other things are kind of, you know, leveling out. So that's good to see. Again, still wait. There's no reason for you to buy at these prices. I know we want to play the game. Go ahead and buy a Lee Sin structure deck or a Victor deck. Upgrade it some. Victor is still very budget friendly. You don't need to run the Thousand Tail Watchers, and you can still take it to your locals and have a good time. I took my Victor deck to my local skirmish last night, and even with it fully upgraded and everything, but basically just with the Thousand Tail Watchers is fully upgraded. But even then, and ended up actually doing pretty well, going 2-2, and almost mainly because I had to go against 3 Kaisas. But I took, you know, I went 1-2 with each game against Kaisa and beat a Kaisa 2-1 as well. So it's like you can still take it against these top decks and see what ends up happening with that. So keep that in mind. You can still get into this game for fairly cheap without having to break the bank. So hopefully these prices can come down. We are getting ever closer to set 2 coming, or not, to wave 2 coming out, and that should really impact the meta and really impact these prices. They need to make sure that wave 2 can have a constant stream. Otherwise, we are just going to continue to have more and more issues. But anyway, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on this current game state. Hopefully we are able to get more products. But until next time, guys, have a good one.